The film begins with a preview of the villa, featuring a distorted voice in the background discussing a woman's behavior. The woman is barely recognizable, standing in a dark room's corner. The distorted voices continue playing in the background as the woman starts running, seemingly from one wing of the villa to another. She grabs a sculpture's head and holds it tightly against her chest while screams and white noise replace the distorted voices. Suddenly, the woman falls off a railing. These events suggest a past occurrence. The next scene transitions to Evie serving desserts at a high-end conference taking place at a posh conference center. After finishing her service, she returns to the kitchen and chats with her colleague about the tips she received. They discuss a dollar bill with a number written on it. As they prepare to leave, Evie's colleague, Grace, hands her a bag that appears to contain Evie's DNA test report. Evie arrives home and indulges in her hobby of pottery. Once finished, she goes to her bed and listens to a voice note from her mother, wishing her a happy birthday and praising her artistic talents. While the voice note plays in the background, Evie lies face up on her bed, lost in thought. She then opens her laptop and watches an advertisement for a matchfinder service. The ad suggests that by sending a DNA test report in the mail, one can discover their desired results. The next morning, Evie visits the mailbox and drops off her DNA test results. In the evening, while chatting with Grace in her room, Evie receives an email stating that she has a cousin whose profile matches hers based on their DNA. The email includes a personalized message from her newfound cousin, Oliver, expressing a desire to meet over coffee when he visits New York in the upcoming week. Despite Grace's skepticism and advice against meeting a stranger, Evie is intrigued and contemplates the idea. The next scene depicts Evie meeting her cousin Oliver at a restaurant. After exchanging formal introductions and engaging in small talk, Oliver invites Evie to a wedding party for their supposed mutual cousin. Initially hesitant, Evie eventually agrees to attend. The scene transitions to Evie at the airport, talking on the phone with her friend Grace. Upon arriving at the arrivals area, she finds Oliver already waiting to receive her. They share a warm hug before heading to the venue of the wedding party. As they arrive at the venue, a magnificent mansion, Evie is in awe of its grandeur. They step out of a Rolls-Royce, and Evie accidentally bumps into one of the housemaids who is carrying wine glasses. A man in a suit, who happens to be the butler of the house, quickly approaches the scene and begins lecturing the housemaid. Evie defends the housemaid, acknowledging her own fault but standing up against the butler's snarky behavior. Despite the butler's insistence, Evie tells him to stop with his remarks. In this exchange, a man named Walter intervenes, asking everyone to calm down. A formal introduction takes place between Walter and Evie, and just as they are engaged in conversation, Oliver enters and introduces Evie and Walter to each other. In the next scene, Evie is guided to her room by the same butler who was previously lecturing the maids. As Evie enters the mansion and observes the hallway, she is startled by the interior decorations. The butler introduces her to a housemate named Mrs. Swift, who then escorts Evie to her room, which exceeds her expectations. Mrs. Swift asks if the room is satisfactory and informs Evie about a bell she can use to summon a maid if needed. Evie looks around the room and notices a picture of a woman hanging on the wall. When she asks about the woman, Mrs. Swift reveals that she was the previous lady of the mansion who recently passed away. Evie goes to sleep, but she has a disturbing dream. In her dream, she finds herself running, and when she stops, she notices a mysterious man in the mansion watching her from a distance. She wakes up abruptly and decides to leave her room. As she explores the mansion, she sees the butler conversing with the other housemates in the hallway. Evie observes their activities when Mrs. Swift suddenly appears and questions Evie about her presence outside her room, warning her about potential danger. Evie returns to her room but is awakened by a knock on her door, indicating that her new family is waiting for her downstairs. Evie joins them in the hallway, where Oliver and the rest of the family greet her. Uncle Julius introduces himself as Evie's uncle and warmly welcomes her to the family. After the introductions, Evie engages in a casual conversation with Oliver. Meanwhile, the butler heads to the kitchen and summons two available maids. He takes them to a door leading to a room in the basement and instructs them to set it up. The maids descend the stairs, but as they are about to start their work, the lights in the room begin to flicker until they eventually go out, plunging the room into darkness. Strange activities unfold, and one of the maids becomes trapped on the floor. Screaming, scratching, and clattering sounds fill the room, but the exact events are left ambiguous. In the next scene, Evie returns to her room and discovers a beautiful golden dress hanging with a note from Walter. Later, she is on a call with her friend Grace when something hits her window. In the evening, Evie attends the wedding party, where she meets the bridesmaids, Victoria and Lucy, who are already aware of her identity. After a brief conversation, Walter arrives at the party, and his entrance is announced as he is also a lord. Walter approaches Evie, surprising her by taking her hand. When she asks about the gesture, she learns that he is indeed the lord of the mansion. The guests anticipate their first dance of the evening, and as they start dancing in the middle of the floor, they engage in intimate conversation. After Walter takes Evie's hand and leads her to a large annex room connected to the mansion, they engage in conversations about how all the orphan cousins end up in one place. Topics such as Evie's curiosity about whether Lord Walter feels bored in the secluded mansion are discussed. As fireworks create background noise, they lean on a table corner and share a passionate kiss. In the next scene, Lord Walter greets the party attendees and converses with Victoria about his personal experience with Evie. The focus then shifts to Evie sleeping in her bed, where eerie events begin to unfold. Curtains sway with the wind, and whispers of Evie's name echo through the room. Startled, Evie wakes up and notices a hand reaching through the window pane. Fearful, she crouches on the ground, witnessing eerie shadows on the walls. Suddenly, Walter appears out of nowhere and calms her down. Walter offers to stay in her room for the night if she's afraid to sleep alone, and they end up sharing the bed. When she wakes up, she is greeted by Victoria and Lucy, who enters her room with a robe in Victoria's hand. Lucy informs Evie that it's a spa day and invites her to join. As Evie and Victoria have their manicures, Victoria jumps into the pool and initiates a peculiar question and answer session. Frustrated with the questions, Evie moves her hand abruptly, causing a cuticle pusher to injure her finger. Disturbed, she tries to leave the spa immediately, but Victoria emerges from the pool and forcefully licks the blood off Evie's finger. Evie returns from the spa and walks through the hallway. She goes to a drawer to retrieve the key to a room she was previously prohibited from entering. Accidentally dropping a file, she opens it and discovers documents containing her complete profile, including her name, status, and family history. Shocked by the revelation, Evie retreats to a room where her luggage is placed, and she begins packing her belongings to leave. Walter enters the room and questions why she is packing. Evie confronts him by presenting the documents containing her profile, accusing him of profiling and stalking her. Walter attempts to comfort her, expressing his genuine interest in getting to know her better. The intense scene transforms into a more intimate one as they share another passionate kiss, intensifying their connection. The next morning, Evie and Walter wake up in bed. Walter informs Evie about a family dinner she must attend and mentions that her dress for the evening is in her closet. Evie gets ready and arrives at the dining hall, where everyone is seated at the table wearing party masks. Walter acknowledges the four families present by naming their clans and proceeds to kiss Evie's hand. However, the atmosphere abruptly turns horrifying when Walter announces his marriage to Evie and their plan to unite the lost families. The butler swiftly cut the throat of one of the maids, collecting her blood in a bowl. The blood is then poured into 3 glasses, which are served to Walter, Victoria, and Lucy. These events unfold through Evie's thoughts, and she recalls that the woman in the picture hanging in her room is not the previous lady of the mansion but her great-grandmother named Emmeline. Gathering her composure, Evie gets up from the dinner table and tries to leave the room. However, the staff prevents her from exiting. Evie expresses her desire to go home, but Walter instructs Victoria and Lucy to handle her for the night. They take Evie to a cellar room, where they reveal their true nature as vampires and attempt to entice her with the promise of eternal life. In a panic, Evie is confined to a small room by Victoria and Lucy, left alone for the night. In the morning, Mrs. Swift comes to Evie's aid, freeing her from the room. She guides Evie on how to escape from the mansion, surprising Evie with her assistance by revealing the close friendship between Evie's great-grandmother and herself. Determined to flee, Evie runs through the passageway, triggering bells throughout the cellars and alerting the inhabitants of abnormal activity. Butlers armed with axes search for Evie, intensifying the chase. Evie manages to leave the mansion, but with everyone in pursuit, she hides in a wooden store outside the premises. A man enters the store, tosses a body inside, and upon hearing Evie's muffled hiccup, starts searching for her. Evie emerges from her hiding spot, locks the man inside the store, and escapes. She continues running until nightfall, finding shelter in a home deep in the jungle. Evie asks for help, but suspicious of the couple's behavior, she refrains from drinking the offered tea. However, the woman attacks Evie from behind, causing her to lose consciousness. In the next scene, Evie awakens in bed with Walter present. He praises her attempted escape but claims it is in vain as she will never leave. Overwhelmed, Evie faints once again. The subsequent scene shows Evie walking down the aisle as she and Walter get married. Walter asks her to drink the blood from his wrist, transforming her into a vampire. However, Evie retaliates by throwing a pot of fire onto the ground, igniting the sanctuary. She attacks Walter with a sharp object and flees toward the hallway. In the hallway, Evie engages in a fight with Victoria, ultimately killing her with the assistance of Lucy. After eliminating the butler, Evie returns to the sanctuary and pushes Walter into the fire. The final scene shows Evie returning to New York with her friend Grace, entering a new outlet that Evie has opened.